Hey, loves, it's Grace Redmond, and good evening. I'm really excited to be with you live tonight. And typically, we go live in the afternoon, but we have an incredible guest joining us from Australia this evening. And so that's why we are showing up tonight. Tuesday night at 5:30. I hope you're all doing fantastic as always. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. And as always, our podcast is interactive. So if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, and myself and my guest will get to those questions. And again, thank you so much for being here. Tonight, I have a really special guest, and I'm very excited. So thank you again for joining me on another episode of Real Talk, where I get to have real life, raw conversations with incredible people from my circles and communities. And today, I'm very excited to host the incredible Inna Segal. Inna is an internationally recognized healer, best-selling author, professional speaker, and television host. Inna brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the topic of the mind-body connection. Inna explores it in a way that is accessible and thought-provoking, daring us to go on a fearless search towards our inner awakening. Ina empowers individuals through transformative self healing techniques. She brings 22 years of experience in energy healing, intuitive medicine, and personal growth with influential books like The Secret Language of Your Body and Understanding Modern Spirituality. Ina has made significant contributions to the fields of alternative healing and self development. Through her work, she empowers individuals to tap into their innate healing abilities and explore the profound connection between the mind, body, and spirit. Help me welcome Inna Segal to the show today. Thank you so much for being with us today. I know you have an extremely busy schedule and you took the time to be here with us, so we appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Grace.
You're welcome. And so one of my favorite books I have, The Secret Language of the Body, which is has been really saved my life. And so it's incredible. And recently you've just put out you know, understanding modern spirituality, which again you can see I've bookmarked so many pages. Another, incredible work of art from you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I have gifted this book many times, and it was just, about 5, 6 years ago that I got introduced to The Secret Language of the Body, and I really helped save my life. And I wanted to kind of hear from you, what was the motivation to kind of bring together this incredible work of art?
I think, well, for me, the motivation was really, it was quite interesting. I started very young, as you know, and I was seeing a lot of one-on-one clients for, quite a reasonable period of time. And I found that for me, I didn't want them to rely on me. I really wanted them to do the work themselves and to be excited about this, their own self exploration and to take responsibility essentially for their own well being, as I felt that I had to. And I was having this experience where I would write down different processes and things for people to do, and then they would come back the next session and they would say, and I would say, well, have you done the process? And it would be silent, and I would kind of say, well, there's no point in lying because I can tell.
You're intuitive.
Um, but there was a lot of excuses of, I lost it, I didn't know where it is, and so on and so forth. And then I was kind of thinking, well, if I put all of this in a book, then they wouldn't have that excuse essentially. And I had previously studied to be a journalist and an author, which is what I did. It's kind of, yeah, that was my study and what I thought I would do. So I kind of felt like, well, if I have that skill, I should, make it happen. And then essentially I went to see a publisher, and I actually thought this publisher was more connected to cards rather than books.
Mm.
And so I went to him with, I don't know, 12 different ideas for cards. And he just sat there and he kind of, because I had a very different book idea at the time, um, he put all the different ideas together and he said, look, if you take this and that and that and that and put it all together, I think you would have a best-selling book. And yeah, and I was like, oh, okay, let me go home and think about it. And yeah, it kind of happened from there. And honestly, when I think about writing this book, I was 26 when I wrote it.
Amazing.
Um, I even my mum asked me how I did it. I don't know. I had two little tiny kids,
Mm.
and I was working non-stop. So not that that much has changed, but I didn't find the writing of that book that difficult. I have found the writing of understanding modern spirituality much more difficult than I did
Really?
of the secret language of your body. But yeah, it was just it kind of was this combination of things. And I always had this sense that when I was ready, that
Mm.
the actual publishing process would not be difficult.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so
So it wasn't something that you were even intending on creating, it seemed to just happen.
yeah, well, I guess there was a part of me that was very focused on, I wanted to create the processes, which is why I wrote a different book, which was focused more on the journey of different aspects that I was exploring at the time. But yeah, not this book. No, I wasn't planning it,
Well,
and
it's amazing.
yeah, and I think when he asked, I kind of went, "Ooh, I already have a lot of that type of information," because I was taking very good notes. I have to say, like when people ask, how did you get the information? It was essentially an experience of seeing a lot of people from different, at that time you didn't have Skype or Zoom or anything. So I did a lot of distance healing still, but it was on the phone. So I actually didn't see the person.
Amazing.
And and I think that doing a lot of that, which I did from different countries, kind of made me go, "Ooh, how does this make sense that somebody in New Zealand and somebody in the US and somebody in Italy and somebody in Greece is having the same type of issues? Wow, I want to learn more about it."
And so then how did you connect kind of the emotional issues, to place them with, the physical body? Like this morning, like I woke up, my shoulder was feeling off, so I picked up the book and, I go down under shoulder and I'm reading, I'm like, oh wow. So it never fails. When I'm having some type of symptom in my body and I pick up the book, it definitely, resonates with me.
That's good. That's a good thing. Look, it was. I really, really believe that the connection between the body and the soul, um, essentially have a language.
Mm.
And my experience of self healing really came from this chiropractor saying, "Look, your body's stuck and it wants to be stuck. Go home." And as I was going home, in a very angry way,
Why were you
I
angry?
because how dare he say that and not help me,
I agree.
because he said I can't help you. Basically, your body wants to do this. So it occurred to me to start to really think about it, and I'll be honest. I had been somebody had given me Louise Hay's book before
Mhm.
that, and I found that it was interesting, but it didn't impact me at all when I looked at it, because I just didn't feel like it had the detail or the depth that somebody like myself needs.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not somebody who's very good at looking at information, having one kind of word or five words or a line, and having and just saying an information and repeating it. And I didn't have any experiences with it, so I was familiar with the idea of it, essentially. But I also found that and I'm not sure if it was, yeah, might have been very just before that, I found that just saying an affirmation for me didn't work
Mhm.
personally. It actually created worse pain, because
Okay.
I felt like I was ignoring what was really going on and trying to put something on top of it. And I wasn't really understanding how things worked, like the thinking, the feeling, the will all being connected.
Mm.
I was very, yeah, I kind of felt like um, it was for me completely mental in terms of that type of work.
Mhm.
Um, and just didn't do anything for me. So I was very skeptical. I was extremely skeptical.
Yeah.
And it was really when I had my own connection to the body, um, that I realized the part of the language was kind of the story that was there. And um, it had a general aspect to it, but it also had a very specific connections. So, for example, when I first connected to my lower back, and essentially I saw my childhood, and there were many layers of it in actually seeing what happened, the layers of um, that I came to Australia not knowing how to speak English, that I was bullied, I was rejected. I never felt myself at school. I never felt like I could fit in. And again, I'm a quite a I'm not somebody who just sits there and is quiet, you know. So I had to, um, yeah, like it really affected who I was. I felt, and it was really interesting that that body, mind, soul
Mm.
experience of connecting to that aspect, which was showing me these, I guess, these stories and how they were intertwined, these experiences. And so from there I started to kind of to go, wow, there must be wisdom. Is there wisdom with
Mm.
each part of the body? And so it became very clear the more I worked with people that the left side of the body was much more of a feminine wisdom, even though that a masculine person could attack that feminine, aspect of myself, of the left side of the body. And the right side of the body had more of the masculine, um, I guess, wisdom, destiny, information, understanding.
Interesting.
And it had nothing to do with the left and the right sides of the brain. It had to do with where the organs were actually,
Interesting.
or are, and how we as a being actually live life. There was so much wisdom.
Mm.
And I found, yeah, that the more you connected to the body, and the soul, because they are together in that sense, the more it became obvious and clear to me, both about each part of the body as well as the, what actually causes diseases, which is a culmination of lots of things.
Yes, and I really appreciate you for that because I had a recent experience. Had I not, been familiar with your work or read your story, I wouldn't have been able to change the timeline of my situation. And I didn't realize that, our emotions are, in our body, and then they manifest in illness and disease, but we can also heal that is what I learned from you. And something that you talked about, and then I'll go back to the healing, is in your new book, you talk about how the soul and spirit are different. However, like in my mind, I always relate, like I felt that the soul and spirit were one. However, you did talk about how the soul and the spirit are different. How are the soul and the spirit different?
And I think it's so normal. For years, I thought they were the same as well. And yeah, and then I went on this really, really deep journey into understanding who we are. And I found like this, because there were things that were being said from lots of different directions, both from spiritual people to, I guess, religious. So a lot of people that I met who were religious were talking about how we have one soul, one life, and that never made sense to me personally. And then the spirit was kind of thrown in there in different ways and confused. And so when I started to really study it, I realized that the spirit part of us is the eternal part, and it is the objective part of us. It's also the part that when we're learning something, like, let's say we're learning to tie a shoelace, and it takes a lot of effort to do so. And when we're learning, we're actually learning with the soul. But once we've learned that information, and it goes into that unconscious part of us where we can just do it, we can tie a shoelace, and we can look at words in a book, and instead of going B, C, F, we can actually read the whole word. um, that is the spirit, right? So it's the part of us that's more objective, that actually goes from life to life and has eternal qualities. It never gets sick.
Mm,
Whereas the soul is intertwined with our emotions and intertwined with a particular destiny of a person and a particular life. So if somebody is open, so when somebody says, well, I have one life, and so on, there's a truth in it. One life with that soul, with
yes.
that body, there is that truth. But
Mm,
the spirit keeps going. And in each life, what made sense to me is that, let's say I'm a feminine person in one life, with a female body. And in that life, my soul essentially comes in, and it makes sure, as I'm it's a bit of a process,
mhm.
this, how it connects, right? Because it takes a while, but it's essentially, it needs to connect to my parents. So the astral body is part of the soul body, and it's also connected to the etheric body, which is the life. It's our life body, it's our energy body, but it's also the body that's connected to our ancestors. So
Mm,
essentially, the soul needs to intertwine with our ancestors in order for the soul to have the destiny of that particular life. When I say ancestors, our parents, grandparents, and so on. And so the soul is very subjective, it's very emotional. It carries that sense of, this is what I'm attracted to, this is what I like, this is what makes me feel good, this is what I don't like, this is what makes me feel bad, this is, I'm going to reject this in my life, I'm not interested, or I'm interested. So it's very connected to our desires, but also it actually carries sensations. So it's a consciousness. So it carries the sensations of pleasure and the sensations of pain. So when we're asleep, the soul essentially, and a part of the soul, this astral part of the body, leaves, which is why people don't feel pain when they're in a deep sleep. But when they're conscious, it comes back, and they're dealing with it. So it's really fascinating that the soul is very unique,
mm.
and it is unique to each life. And in each new incarnation, you get a new soul, which it's new, but it's almost like it's new, but it's not, because it's
So it
new in a
carries.
sense.
So does the our so the spirit is our like our eternal spirit. It's like what we carry with us, through eternity, through other lives. And so this is so interesting because I didn't realize, I thought like our soul was what we carried, but into each life we bring a different soul. And you're saying that soul is connected to, our desires, our personality, to our ancestors as well.
to our ancestors and also to our destiny.
Mm,
So each time we come, we have a different destiny, essentially, because the soul's intelligent and it will come with an intention. Which
mm.
is why when you kind of you go, well, what do I love here? What do I want to do? What would satisfy me? You only know that because of the nature
That's
of your
making
soul.
that's making sense to me now because they talk about soul contracts. So
Yeah,
I might have a soul contract in this life that's very different than another life because this is the contract for this life.
exactly. And part of it is because, again, when we talk about the soul contract, is that either you're mature enough and you can do it now, you can fulfill it,
Mm,
or there's certain people and circumstances that are, going to come into this experience of life,
mhm.
um, that have been connected from previous lifetimes. So there's a lot that kind of
So many
goes
layers.
on to make that particular destiny unique. And even your body, some people have strong, very strong, healthy bodies in one life and very weak ones in another. Or, they have more what people would call, appealing or attractive bodies in one life. And in another life, you can be born with all sorts of issues, disabilities, things that happen where you're not meant to focus on that.
And is it like just we come in, the soul comes with different lessons that we choose to learn, and that's how why we come in that way?
Well, yeah, but I think the word choose is a challenging one because we don't necessarily sit there and go, I really want to learn how to, be, sick, or I really want to learn how to. I think I think when we use the word choose from the spiritual perspective, we're really using it from, a higher place, which is I understand that there's things that I have to work with and work through, based on potentially, let's say, in a previous lifetime, I was very hurtful to other people and to certain particular beings, and I'm ready to work through some of this and to be, this is where karma comes in, where I'm ready to deal with the challenging experiences from a previous life in this one, or even positive ones as well. So when I am, it's yeah, I choose it, so to speak, with with a lot of support from higher beings, but it's not a kind of choice where I sit there and I'm like, oh, I think I'll choose this.
And it's very like, it's, of course it's unconscious, uh, very, very unconscious, but our higher, or our spirit is aware, we're just not aware.
Yeah, well, our soul's aware when it's going through that process in between lifetimes, but we're
Mm.
not. Mostly, we're not aware when we're here in this life.
I never even believed of in past lives until I had my own past life experience. So I've unless I've experienced it, I'm skeptical. But I had my own past life experience with Denise Lynn, and then that made me like, I realized like there is something, beyond this. So this work has been so fascinating. And then something else that I've recently learned, and you talk about, is the ego. And you talk about, becoming friends with our ego to become empowered. Like, how can we make friends with our ego to empower us?
Well, I think firstly, people need to understand, like, that word ego has got a really bad rap, and the reason for it is actually because we have the physical body, we have the astral body, we have the etheric body, and, different aspects of the soul. And we have an ego. And in order for a human being to have these energy bodies, or even the physical body, which is the most kind of perfected of all of them, um, it took millions of years for that to be created
That's so love.
and to evolve. And so during a lot of people have heard of Lemuria and Atlantis and different time periods. So when Atlantis sank, it was at the time where the sense of self was just like a seed. It was beginning.
Mm.
And the next great civilization was the Indian civilization, because we go through like several thousand years where different civilizations or different parts of the world kind of have more power or more impact, I should say, rather than power, impact. So right now we're like in Anglo-Saxon experience, but when we were in the Indian experience after Atlantis, essentially, and yoga was born around that time. In order to get into the spiritual world, you actually had to dissolve the ego, because the ego was very dense and kind of unrefined. And this is where the idea that we have to get rid of the ego was born, essentially. But thousands of years later, we're in a time where the ego has evolved, or for some people it has, I should say.
You're right.
And
You're right.
so for all, the ego has two sides. So it has the lower self, which is very connected to the astral body, into I want, I need, I want to have it, give it to me. I don't care about other people. And sorry, I'm getting excited.
I love it.
And unfortunately, the way that the world works right now, in the materialistic sense, is like we want to push that idea onto children and to go, I have one life, it doesn't matter who I hurt, as long as I have fun and I make some money, doesn't matter, right? So we're actually creating a lot of challenges by through how the school systems work and what they're pushing right now.
That's a whole
Because
other podcast.
previously, sorry.
That's a whole other
Yeah,
podcast.
exactly. Previously, that wasn't what was happening. Anyway, so the the ego is seen, because of how long people have gone, oh, ego means egotism, but they
Mhm.
haven't actually looked at the ego is your sense of I am. It's your sense of uniqueness. It's the ego is what makes you you. There is no other you except you.
I love
And the
that.
ego also connects the spirit and the soul together, and the
Mhm.
physical. So uh, that sense of I am is on that is part of the ego that we need to develop, is
I love
thinking for ourselves. For example, it's discernment, it's understanding what is right and what is wrong to do in terms of morality and hurting people and how to live. It is and ourselves, the I am, the higher part of the ego, what it does is that it's like your wise self, right? It's connected to the higher self, and you have to wake it up. And you wake it up by constantly asking the question of, is this coming from my lower self, or this behavior, this thought, this way of doing, would this come from my higher self? And if I had a wise guide um, in front of me, what would he or she say, and how would they guide me? And so essentially, as we refine the higher aspect of the ego, which is the most important part of our evolution right now,
Mhm.
which is why it's being attacked, um,
Interesting.
where you know we
Interesting.
start to hold ourselves. So when the I is strong, which is the higher part of the ego, where, you know,
Mm.
a really difficult situation occurs to you in your life, and rather than falling to pieces, falling apart, you respond.
I, I
And
I love this because when I first stumbled on the spiritual community, 7, 10 years ago, what I was learning was, dissolve the ego. It's not about the ego. And then as I've matured and walked forward on my own journey, I've realized, like, that's why I wanted to have this conversation, that I don't want to dissolve my ego. My ego does serve me. It's just being present and aware. Is my ego coming from a place, of fear, and then using my higher self to work with the ego? Because you're right. Now this is really beautiful because we are unique. It is I am, and I don't want to dissolve that. But I've been taught that if I'm in my ego, then I'm egotistical, I'm stuck up, I'm all these bad words. But in reality, I know the ego is meant to keep us safe, and it does take us to this, crazy place. But if we work with the ego, with the higher self, it's very powerful. So I really appreciate you, bringing that to the forefront. And I really appreciate you saying, let's not dissolve our ego, but work with it, because that makes us unique. And there's nothing wrong with owning who we are.
well, absolutely. And actually, what people need to understand is that, again, it's understanding time periods. In the past, that was really, really important. Now, and I've asked this question from, people who know much more than me about this topic, and the answer I've always got is that it's actually quite dangerous to try and dissolve the ego, because that is you. That is your
Mhm.
sense of your own experience of everything in life. It's, you're part of the reason we're all unique is
Yeah,
because clearly the divine, wanted uniqueness. Otherwise, we'd all be the same.
I like
And we used to be part of this group soul, and there's still a lot of people who are, and the media pushes the group mentality as opposed to the individual mentality. And so, we're here to wake up as individuals,
mm,
which is what is that real higher part of the ego is about and is vital. But if you were to, let's say, dissolve the ego, which hardly anyone actually even knows how to do,
right.
but let's say you would go into the spiritual world, and you all your wisdom, all your experiences, everything that you've gained would be lost,
Mm,
right? Because you would just become part of the all without any uniqueness. And then also, from my hearing from these wise teachers, when you, let's say, you reincarnate, you would show up here with probably no ability to think. So
no,
you would
thank
be,
I'm like, no, thank you.
yeah, you would be classified as somebody who has brain damage, essentially,
So we are going to
because,
celebrate the ego in a
yeah,
healthy way.
exactly.
And that's, it's a beautiful, and it's, for me, it's been an empowering thing to own that part. So I appreciate how you put that with the I am and the uniqueness. Something I want to go back to, again, something you talked about was us really needing to be our own healer. And, I've had that experience lately where, same thing, I went to, certain, and I'm not bashing Western medicine at all, but I didn't get the answers I felt I needed. And so then I started exploring, other things like your book and holistic healing. What's the first step that we could take to start help, heal ourselves if we're experiencing some type of, physical ailment? I know that's a big question, but what's like just a step that we can take? Because it's everything, all of our emotions just live in our body, and that stress, and sometimes it's overwhelming.
I think, to be honest, I mean, there's many steps, but the first step is to take responsibility. And people
Yeah.
don't like that word because they kind of go, I'm not responsible for my sickness. I'm not responsible for something that happened to me in my life that could have triggered it, or, a combination of things. And it's like, if they can see responsibility not as I'm going to blame myself, which is just, to me, it's childish, to be honest. It's a child who would kind of, but we're not taught how to think in a wise way. So it's easy to go, oh, I haven't done anything, but to actually take responsibility from the perspective of going, I I'm the one who can, this is my body, and I'm the one who needs to research, understand, work with it way more than any doctor, any healer,
Yes.
anybody on this planet. I say to people, as much as, I can tune into people's bodies and see things and can tell you stuff, I don't know even, 1 millionth probably of what you need to know about yourself. Like I can spend half an hour and tell you obvious general things and maybe create some connected pieces together, but you have to then do something with it. And so part of, again, working with a sense of I am is actually, and strengthening it,
Mm,
is to actually allow it to go, well, I'm going to work with it. It's the sense of I am that works with the emotions.
Oh,
And
that's
I've done a lot of emotional work. I think I've done more emotional work than probably anybody on this planet in terms of teaching it and, all
well.
over the world and doing it.
I mean, well, you've written this book,
Yeah.
so I
But
love that responsibility. And I
yeah.
was speaking to someone about that today, as as I'm getting into the second half of my life, I've had to take a lot more responsibility for my health than I ever thought I would. And I'm researching and meeting with different people because it's my responsibility. And if I don't live, I'm just going to say it, a healthy lifestyle, that can be managing my stress, my emotions, what I put in my body, then I'm going to be in disease, in dis-ease. And it hasn't been easy, because there's that hormone thing going on.
It's not easy, like I think one of the things that people have to give up is this um, always chasing what's easy, and
That's
actually go, you know what, once I take responsibility, then the next part of it is, from my perspective, from what I do, is to actually get to know your body and to
kind of
befriend it and start to go, what is this part? What's my thyroid or throat telling me? What is my heart telling me? What is my solar plexus telling me? What's my body really saying at the moment? And seeing it as a process.
yeah.
So one of the something that I've learned about healing is that it goes through a very particular process. So, for example, the first part for most people is the victim. It's like,
Mhm.
poor me, this happened to me. Who can save me, heal me, fix me? And then usually it goes into this. This is like a stage one experience of suffering. I'm just suffering, poor me. And then yeah, stage two of it is that, I want a magic genie, give it to me now. And then there's kind of slow realization that often happens in stage three, that maybe if there's no such thing as a complete magic genie, and then even, one that you put into your mouth usually has side effects or it's slow or whatever. So there needs to be something deeper, and there's often, a bit of disappointment that happens and a disillusionment. And then stage four is when the real healing can start to happen, because in stage four is where you go, I've got to take responsibility for this. What is this about? What's going on here? And then we're kind of going into this stage, from stage four into stage five, and we start to actually, stage five is really important, because this is where we start to look at aspects of ourselves that have got stunted. So let's say for me, when I was talking about moving to Australia and having to learn the language, it was like there was in different parts of my inner child that got stunted, that did not grow because of the environment that I was in. And so to experience healing for me, for my back, for example, it wasn't, just seeing a child. It was that sense of I don't belong, I don't have support, I don't feel like I'm worthy. So there were different aspects that had to be looked at through. I'm big into archetypal work. I just think it's one of the most
Mhm.
profound ways of working. And so, I spent years looking at the inner child in all different ways so that that part could grow. Now, just the first connection of it, and the that realization of, hey, we're connected, and now we can we can work together. That actually created the physical healing. So
Oh, that's beautiful.
the physical part of it was actually not didn't take long once I got that wisdom.
Connected
But
with your child.
yeah, but
Yeah.
the actual emotional took years.
It's a journey. I mean, I know I've been, doing self-development since I was, 15 years old, but the real deep healing started 7, 10 years ago. And it doesn't end. There's more late, like you're talking about the layers, but the inner child work has also been powerful for me. So thank you for mentioning that. I don't, someone, Christina Flack is here with us, Al Bernal, Melissa Kim Corder, Brandy Porter Strader, Rachel Elizabeth. So thank you all for joining us. And it looks like Christina has a question, if that's okay with you, Ina. She said,
Yeah.
what does alcoholism mean to the body? What does alcoholism mean to to the Eve body, Christina? Um, I don't know if that's what is that like? I guess the question is, what is it? What does alcoholism mean to the body? Not sure what the question is, but if you could intuit that. Yes, okay. Alcoholism mean to the body?
um, well, I think, any addiction essentially is a way of not wanting to be here,
Mm,
wanting to numb, wanting to um, get away from the stress or the trauma or the pain of what's going on um, in your life. So, in some ways, it takes the soul and the astral body out of the physical body, and obviously the physical body and the etheric body gets cold, and it starts to numb and freeze, and the physical body obviously starts to eventually degenerate. And the question is also how much alcohol are we talking about at each point, because if somebody has I mean, I've gone through different stages where I have been against, every part of it, every drop of it, anything like it. And then I've gone also into understanding, because I've had people who surround me who drink,
yeah,
some of them.
it's part of our culture.
Yeah,
It's a big
exactly.
part of our culture.
Yeah. So I've had to kind of come to a place of balance and understand, having a little bit as opposed to having a lot, as which things. And rather than just, it's easy to judge and to kind of
Sure.
go, it's all bad. I think, the question is why somebody's taking it, at what point. And it's sometimes it's hard for me to say that, because there's a part of me that disagrees with this, but I've had these conversations with many people where there are times where it could be helpful to somebody who's going through, I don't know, a challenge, and maybe just gives them that little break. Maybe it helps them to reflect. It
Sure.
depends on the scenario and the person. Maybe it helps them. I mean, I've had people, who are around me who've said, look, um, at times they may feel suicidal, and actually having alcohol for them has prevented them from, from taking on their
Wow.
own lives. So I can't sit here and judge and say, well, don't do it. Just, it's like, because I don't know, because it's one of the things that has never been an issue for me personally, but has been an issue for people that I've been close to in my life. So,
But
yeah.
I like how you said just addiction in general is a way for us to disconnect, hide the pain, and then that disconnects us from ourselves. And then we when we're in those spaces, then we can't connect to our body to hear what it's saying.
Well, yeah. And I just think that part of all addiction, and, from my understanding, most of us have some kind of addiction,
Oh,
and
I
so
totally. I have definitely have some, addictions, and I know why, because I cope. That's my way of coping. I'm aware of it, and I work on detaching, but some of them I'm just owning them. Some of them I will own.
well, exactly, and it's just, to me, it's how do we learn to be more kind
Yes, fine.
and to be more aware, and also, as you said, in terms of owning things, it's almost like, it's getting to know an aspect of yourself, and with this aspect of yourself, over time, how do we befriend each other instead
Mm.
of how do we destroy each other?
Oh, yes, I love that. So owning all the parts of us and work together because we don't know what we don't know, and once, we learn it, just embrace all those parts of us. That's
With kindness.
beautiful. Yeah, that's and self-compassion and kindness.
Yeah.
You're amazing, and you really took time out of your, busy schedule to be with us here today. I'm so grateful for it, and I want to be respectful of your time. There's one last nugget of wisdom that you can leave us with. What would that be?
So many. I feel like, right now, I think the question of that sense of self has become so vital, because essentially what it's really asking you is to go deeper, get to know yourself, but not only get to know yourself from, these are my weaknesses, these are my strengths, but actually get to know yourself as a soul spirit being that is going through this cycle of reincarnation, coming back, and get excited, get interested, and don't be afraid. I feel like people are so afraid of anything that has layers and
Mm,
complexity. Actually, be excited about it. If it sounds too simplistic, there's probably a lot missing, in the actual understanding. Which is actually my main reason for writing Understanding Modern Spirituality, was
yes.
because, I was like, well, if we had to bring, kind of old ancient knowledge into the new experience of where we are in life, how would we do it without bringing old in, but bringing wisdom in, and
Mm,
not losing, the wisdom of the ages, but also realizing that, in each new experience, something new should be born.
mm,
And what is it now? What is in this modern spirituality that can be born? And a lot of what I have experienced in more of this new age industry is simplifying and dumbing down everything, and it's like, well, we've gone through that stage as well of oversimplifying everything. And now I feel like we have an opportunity with everything that's happened in the world to
mm,
go into a stage of complexity and depth and wisdom, and actually, reclaim, um, both the wisdom that has been around for a long time, but bring it into the present, bring it into, how is this relevant now? How is this helpful now in my life? And that is an exciting journey. And I feel like when somebody takes the journey, they'll never be depressed, because even if they are, they'll be like, oh, this is interesting. what's that about? What's
Yeah,
going on? Which part of me is having this experience? How do I connect with this part, right? So everything becomes this journey of curiosity, an awakening of, hey, I'm just curious. I wonder. I just wonder.
I
And
love
so
it.
rather than taking it as, I don't want to learn something, really difficult or complex, it's like, be excited that there's more to learn and it's not just all the same.
And that's what I, loved, so definitely grab, understanding modern spirituality, because you did break it down and I learned some things that I didn't know. And I thought, I mean, of course I don't know everything, but there was some, you dove really deep and I liked it. And I love how you talk about like this is a discovery and get curious and get excited. So you've done just an amazing job with both these, books. I'm so grateful that you're here with us. I appreciate you. I know you're so busy. Thank you so much. And I know the audience is just really excited because I had a lot of people reach out, excited that you're going to come on. So thank you so much for joining us this morning from Australia. We love you. We appreciate you. And please keep, doing your work. The world needs more of it.
Thank you. And the last thing, if I can say, is that I do a lot of um, kind of master classes and
Yes,
online
please
classes
let
that
us
people
know.
can.
I think you have a free master class coming up soon. Can you tell us about that? I saw that today.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a class coming, a free one coming up, a master class coming up in on the would be 9th for you guys in the US and 10th for us in Australia. So 9th, probably around 5 o'clock your time. And it's actually about connecting a lot of the pieces together from understanding more about the wisdom of the body and the emotions and which parts of the body are saying what, as well as how each emotion in different parts of the body is quite different. Even if we call it the same name, it's
Mm,
actually telling you a different story. So fear in your throat is not the same fear that is in your hip area, is not the same fear that is in your knee, not the same fear that's in your kidneys. So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at again the subtle bodies, and in particular a deeper dive into ancestry, because there's so much that's happening around people's blood, people's hearts, and it's connected both to our intuition, to how we live, to our ancestry, to so many aspects. And also I'm going to connect in archetypes and what does it mean and where they are. There's four that are shared with humanity, but how there's a shadow and the light aspect, something that I haven't actually shared much of in more of the free classes that I'm doing. So there's going to be a real journey. We're going to do a pretty powerful healing process on
mm.
an archetype as well.
So I'm
And
gonna share it. I'm gonna find it again, and I want to share that with my audience, and then also, we should have this up before that. So we'll also share it in the link because that's amazing, and I know that many people in my audience would love to join that masterclass. It's fascinating and incredible, and like I said, Ina's book and information definitely helped, save my life and changed a timeline with one of my health crisis that I had. So I'm grateful for that. So I'll share that on my pages, the master class. And if I don't see it, I'll reach out to you so you can send me the link.
beautiful. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Ina. And we're so grateful. If you enjoyed this, definitely please like and share. And then until next time, I appreciate you. And Ina, hang on with me. But everyone have a wonderful evening. Thanks for being here with us all. Take care. Bye.